I consider myself a pretty flexible anime watcher. While my roots are in shonen action, I have plenty of personal favorites in romance, drama, mystery, and any number of other genres. I'm not picky and will generally vibe with any type of story as long as it's fun or well written. But for whatever reason, comedy series have just never been my thing. Now, I do like when stories have humor. The secondary genre for basically every Shonen Jump battle series might as well be comedy already, but there's something about pure comedy series that just doesn't click with me. Honestly, my hottest anime take that doesn't involve teenage romantic comedy faux pas is probably my general boredom watching Konosuba. A series whose jokes were very funny the first couple times they told them, and then by the 35th time had gotten a bit old. But it's a problem I have with most comedy series I've ever watched, anime or not. The jokes start becoming repetitive and I start getting bored. So when a show can keep me engaged, I take notice. And when a show gets progressively funnier over the course of 3 perfectly adapted seasons while also being in one of the better romance stories in the medium, well, I think it's safe to say that that show has done something unprecedented. It's made me like a comedy anime. Kaguya-Sama Love is War is the funniest show I have ever watched, bar none. Its combination of a killer core conceit, incredibly funny skits, and extremely likable characters puts it in a realm untouched by mortal man. Whether you just like the idea of 2 tsuneres duking it out to make the other confess, or are interested in some of the more intricate, obscure jokes the show holds, there's something here for everyone. But Kaguya, despite what I just said, doesn't truly fix my personal comedy problem, as I don't think it's fair to call it a pure comedy. There's a plot and it's very compelling, but it does show me that some of those comedies I don't vibe with aren't really trying as hard as they need to. Your basic sitcom is all about building up characters that the audience knows and putting them in different situations to see how they interact, hence the situational comedy aspect. And to keep this formula as clean as possible, the characters can't ever really undergo any significant change, else that messes with the core dynamic. There's a reason some of the longest running live action shows of all time are sitcoms. They can go on essentially indefinitely. What the great ones are able to do though is use this formula as a framework to tell funny jokes. The characters are static, but their personalities are simply a way to create a situation to tell a joke. Where some comedies falter is when they make the personality or the characterization the joke. That can work and can occasionally work as a supplement or explanation for a different joke. Seinfeld is really good at that, but it gets repetitive very quickly. It lacks creativity and ultimately takes away from the situational part of the comedy because you already know what the punchline is going to be. And I'm now realizing that I really should have just made a separate video on Konosuba at this point. But I digress. What Kaguya-Sama does so well is taking all the best parts of the framework I just described and stripping out the stagnancy, replacing it with a refusal to return to the status quo. There's absolutely some small story resets and steps backwards for our characters, but if you remove the gags and the skits, you can trace a very clear character arc for everyone in the cast, even Chika. And I won't do that for you because Jeff of Mother's Basement already did that in exceptional detail and you should go watch that video. The actual forward momentum not only allows for fresh jokes, but allows for reused jokes with slightly different punchlines. Chika helping Shirogane learn a new skill is a bit that happens multiple times over the course of the first 3 seasons, but it doesn't get repetitive because every time Chika's a little more frustrated and a little closer to losing her sanity. It's a really good bit because it builds on itself through the characters developing as people, instead of repeating the same punchline 4 times. The show is absolutely exceptional at this, creating and evolving its own comedy alongside the story, actually allowing its characters to go through personal growth, knowing that wherever they end up, a funnier joke will be waiting. A lesser show would want to keep all of its characters in limbo so as to not lose certain comedy crutches. We'd be 30 episodes in and it would be doing a bit about how Ishigami is a slacker and loner who likes to play video games. That was funny in episode 3, so surely the audience will like it when it's brought back as a punchline again and again. Instead, there are almost no self-deprecating Ishigami jokes in Season 3, replaced with far funnier jokes centered around his personal growth and caring nature. All the characters benefit from this. You still get the familiarity of the characters you love acting like you think they will in comedic situations, with the bonus that they feel like real people, not characters stuck in sitcom purgatory. The comedy stays fresh, which in turn keeps it funny, and in fact makes it funnier because it's building off established character lore at that point. The show treats you with respect, essentially handing you the keys to a set of inside jokes and trusting you'll be able to keep up as they morph and change. Kaguya-Sama has absolutely locked down the art of telling unique, funny jokes, and if the entire show was just the gags, I'd still probably be making this video. The crazy thing is though, even after all that praise, I'm still selling Kaguya-Sama short. It's a comedy, but it's a romantic comedy, and that romance is what truly takes it from a great show to an all-time great. At the start of the series, the romance kind of just feels like a vehicle through which jokes are able to exist. The whole point is the absurdity of the lengths Kaguya and Shirogane will go to in an attempt to make the other confess. It's a love battle, some may even say a war. As it continues though, it's written so elegantly and explained so thoroughly that despite the absurdity, it's able to create a very real relationship. Even through the jokes and the gags, it captures the feeling of liking someone and not knowing what to actually do about it. The very real process of planning out insane schemes in your head to try and get your crush to notice, except on an over-the-top genius level. Even the show's only status quo, that neither main character has confessed, works in this way, so perfectly capturing the feeling of not wanting to ruin a good thing. The fear that things are going well, but if you confess, if you take that risk, and it doesn't work, you've destroyed everything. Because yes, the funny haha show is able to provide you with a realistic recreation of the uncertainty and anxiety that plagues many actual people as they're on the cusp of a potential relationship. It portrays a slow burn relationship in a comedic light, but also takes the time to build up that relationship naturally, to make it so that you're not just laughing at Kaguya and Shirogane, but actively cheering for them as well, invested in every little step forward in any meaningful move made in a plan that works a bit too well or completely blows up in someone's face. It's somehow made it where a significant amount of pure gags still feel like they have real stakes. The same goes for the entire cast, romance or not. You're drawn in by what you think are funny stereotypical archetypes, and slowly find that there's real living characters underneath those initial assumptions, and they're worth falling in love with. Because the greatest strength in Aka Akasaka's writing style isn't his pithy contemporary jokes or his well-paced heart-wrenching character writing. It's the ability to seamlessly weave them together in a way that feels natural and doesn't reduce the impact of either. Tonal whiplash is one of my biggest pet peeves in storytelling. If you want me to feel a certain way, commit to it, or else you're going to ruin whatever you were trying to do. As many already know, Fire Force is a big culprit of this for me, constantly undercutting big emotional moments with quote-unquote comedy, or ruining an intense fight with a bad gag. Hinamatsuri is a comedy show on the other end of the spectrum with a similar result. It's hard to find comedy at the expense of characters as funny if you're providing me with touching, often sad moments, while it's tough to even take those seriously when the jokes are flying in out of nowhere. Jack of all trades, master of none, so to speak. It is so incredibly difficult to constantly play certain characters up for gags and still get the audience to emotionally invest in them, and yet that's what Kaguya is able to do. It's able to tread the line between romance and comedy and character piece and come out the other side as a shining example of all three. It makes sure to keep the jokes coming, but plays it completely straight when it needs to. There are jokes in the sports festival episode, but when it comes to Ishigami's backstory or his eventual personal growth, they're not played for laughs. They're handled with the deft and grace of a silent voice. And it's honestly astonishing to see a show be able to do this so perfectly, with a character that's introduced as a cast punching bag for a little while. The show can make you laugh and make you cry in the same episode without lessening the force of either emotion. It's really an absolutely insane achievement in writing from a show that, at its core, has such a simple premise. I think this word has gotten beaten to death over the years, but it truly is peak romantic comedy. It's one of the rare shows where it progressively gets better every season, and even if we never got any more of the anime, I think I'd still be totally happy. Because I failed to mention this earlier, but not only is the romance built up perfectly, but it builds up to easily one of the best payoffs I have ever seen. Not in just the romance, not in an anime, that I have ever seen. Every single gag, every single genuine moment, everything you've learned about these characters, all the relationships and growth, it was all meticulously tuned to build up to an extraordinary climax. And to prove, if there was any lick of doubt left, that Kaguya-Sama is truly in an entire league of its own.